Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I am the Hypocrats. Today we're going to be discussing my favorite parts of Vice's debates of Asian Americans debating model minority and Asian hate.
Assimilation. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it a burden? Is it an opportunity?
So I didn't catch this the first time that I watched this, but when the man and the woman both said that they believe that assimilation is necessary, they both got different reactions. As you will see from these clips, that when the liberal woman says that she believes it is necessary, the other liberals in the room nod their head, yes, you are correct. But when the conservative guy says it, they disagree with him.
Assimilation, I think I would define that as, in part, I think necessary to an extent because we are forced to in order to navigate this country. So I would say learning the language, learning how to properly behave, for example. That's in part kind of assimilation, making sure that you are
in line.
kosher in this society. And I think in part that means survival.
I think assimilation is not just a great thing, it's a necessary thing. No society can hold together where people have nothing in common, they don't speak the same language, they don't practice the same things. And you may look at something like just food habits or what you eat and think that's fairly frivolous. But the truth of the matter is that on a broader level, when we're talking about more big picture things, differences in race, culture, religion, all these things, people have fought wars, violent wars, killed each other over these things for thousands of years. If America is to hold together, assimilation, not just good or bad, necessary. I don't think it's going to be possible for America to survive as a stable, functioning society if people don't, to some degree, say, well, here's what we're going to commonly agree.
Now, both of them were 100% correct. No matter what, when two groups come together, they will fight. And whichever group has the best aspects from their culture will be the predominant culture to lead on. If your group has the best medical advancements, the best technology, the best entertainment, the tastiest food, those aspects of your culture will become the predominant one in that society. One thing that two groups will always have an issue with and always fight over is belief systems like religion, because they're things that you cannot prove to be correct or better than each other's. America is called the melting pot for a reason, because we delve into a bunch of different cultures. We have the ability to pick and choose what we like. The problem with today's society are gatekeepers. Now, being racist is a very primitive mindset. It's just a modern mindset compared to the same tribalism that our ancestors used to think. You look different than me, you act differently than me, you believe in different things than I do, so therefore you are dangerous to me. Back when Americans owned slaves, they had that cultural gatekeeping aspect of them. They didn't want their slaves to live like them. They thought that they were beneath them and that their culture was superior. And there are people today that still share that same mindset. They believe that certain people should or should not be allowed to partake in certain cultures depending on the way that they look. Just like all of the primitive racists of the past, they don't have the ability to see anyone as an individual, but rather the way they look determines what group that they belong to. Therefore, they believe that culture is not determined from its actual source, which is a location from where it was originated, but rather the way that the people looked that came from that location. Just further shows their ignorance, because if they were to see a Korean partaking in a Japanese culture, they're not going to have an issue with it. But if they were to see a white person doing the same thing, they would. Clearly, if somebody's partaken into your culture, they are taking interest in it. They appreciate it. That is good for societies to grow, because that is one way to unite as a society.
Who gets to choose it?
The majority culture, I suppose.
And what's majority culture?
The people with power.
And who's people with power?
Who's people with power?
White people.
Well, I don't know if that's...
I'm gonna say it.
Yeah.
White people. It's okay.
I don't know if that's necessarily so true. I mean,
Wait, can you
look
unpack?
at,
Yeah.
Let's elaborate.
I don't think a particularly white, quote unquote, interest controls things like
In America.
pop culture.
Do you believe
Well, I
white
think-
supremacy exists?
I think
You know, the crazy thing is I used to be that ignorant. It was blissful. Let's break this down. There's no such thing as white culture. So I don't know how white people hold the majority culture when there's no such thing as white culture to hold the majority to. We all came from different backgrounds, different beliefs, different practices. Basically, like I said previously, we take everything that we enjoy the most, things that we like, and we put it into our lives. And we all live very differently. Doesn't matter the color of our skin. So I'm not exactly sure how we hold the majority culture when we ourselves don't hold the same culture as each other. And I'm glad that they think of me as more powerful than them, but it's not true. There is nothing that I can do that any of them on that panel cannot. Power is having the ability to take what you believe and to put it forth for other people to be forced to follow. I hate to break it to them, but if white people had power, then every single election when we're trying to put people into a position to enact the things that we believe, we wouldn't be divided 50-50 every single election. You know, I hate to break it to the purple-haired girl and the he-him guy in the front row, but we don't think with the amount of melanin in our skin. We think with our brains.
They did in 2020. They quite literally bent their knee. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, the entire Democrat, basically, caucus in Congress literally bent the knee to George Floyd and to Black Lives Matter. Like, they quite literally did that.
And that was a bad thing?
I think it was a stupid thing. I
Why?
think it was just ridiculous pandering
So
to
Black
a
lives do not
terrorist
matter?
movement ran by.
Yeah, please, yeah.
Black lives do not matter?
I do think that Black Lives Matter. I don't support the movement known as Black Lives Matter.
Do you ever say all lives matter?
Of course. As a Christian, I absolutely believe
All lives matter.
Absolutely.
Well, hold on. Let's use that same logic. Are you telling me that you don't believe that all lives matter? There's nothing I hate more than when you say you don't support Black Lives Matter, that everybody automatically jumps to, you don't think that Black Lives matter? No, I'm an equalist. I believe that all lives are equal. We all matter the same, hence the all lives matter. Whereas my wife goes off of the no lives matter slogan because she thinks that the government, from their perspective, does not give a damn about any of the lives, so no lives matter. And she's also correct. Do I support black people? Absolutely. Do I support gay people? Absolutely. But I do not support pride groups like BLM or the Pride organization. We'll get into why in a further video, but just to sum it up, groups that stem from pride instead of love end up becoming what they hate. If what you believe in stems from love, you will not create hatred towards a group of people. That only happens if what you believe is stemming from pride. Let's get back to what he said about Pelosi and Schumer literally bending the knee for BLM. He was 100% correct when he said that they were just pandering. My question to those liberals is, why does that not bother them? A politician that is supposed to be representing them is pretending to represent them. They should be furious about that. But instead, they want to put all of the focus on the fact that he said he does not support Black Lives Matter. Let's be real. If these politicians truly cared and truly believed that these communities needed help and that resources were the way that they could do so, they would give them the resources. The problem is that these politicians don't care about anybody but themselves, and trying to help a group of people and spend a lot of money to help a group of people isn't going to do anything other than keep the votes that they already had. Those politicians would be much more willing to spend a large amount of money to help get people into the country to bring on new votes for them. Or they would be much more willing to send a larger sum of money than it would probably take to help the communities in our country overseas, because that probably lines their pockets in certain ways. I mean, if you want to test my theory, all of you vote Republican on the next presidential election and watch and see what the Democrats would do to regain your vote. I guarantee they would actually be willing to put money into your community to get your vote again.
But I think we should acknowledge the fact that diversity, quote unquote, is not a factor that is our strength. It's not a factor that historically or even in the current strengthens societies. People don't come together, form societies, form families, form communities because they have nothing in common. They come together and do those things because they have something in common, right?
You talk about race in such black and white terms. The way you talk about it is it's either with America, whatever your definition of America, or not. You're talking in very black and white terms, and that's actually the problem in discussing race, because we're Asian Americans, we're neither black, we're neither white. When you're having a race discussion, you can't be...
I didn't realize that race was a paradigm and that white people were on one end and black people were on the other, and that all of the races were in the middle. I kind of thought of us as humans that just practiced and believed certain things, not because of the color of our skin, but because of where we grew up and the people that we were around. That guy, again, was absolutely correct. What we celebrate to unify us is going to be what unifies us. Celebrating what makes us different is not. And that seems to be the most popular idea of the racists of modern day. We need to stop saying that we are all the same human race and start signifying that we are different. So you want to go back to the past and do the exact same thing that the racists of the past have done that you complain about today. That's what I call hypocrisy. Anyone is saying that we are all the same human race, they are signifying that everything about us that is different is beautiful. but they are saying that that is not held at a value, or that we should not value that, because that is what will pull us apart. These people that want to be recognized and categorized into other races and so on, they hold value in those things, and because they hold value in those things, they are going to segregate themselves from everybody else who doesn't hold value in those things. You go to a Klansman or a Nazi and you tell them that we are all the same, that we are all one human race, they will laugh at you, because they don't believe that. They believe we are different and that we should be segregated. So these people trying to do the exact same thing that these KKK and Nazi members are doing, while complaining that there are KKK and Nazi members, are just showing that there is other supremacy aside from white supremacy.
What is the primary perpetrator of violence against Asians overall, right? Because if we talk about these videos, we have to count them in the statistics, and we're not doing that. And when we do that, we find, well, I'll tell you this, the plurality top perpetrator of violence against Asians, number one, is not happening in rural America, and number two, is not being done by white people.
So is it black people that are doing it? Like, is it the black and brown people that are doing it?
No, that's exactly
just inherently violent. Like,
Just say it.
I didn't say that. All I said
beat
was,
around it. Just
all I
say it.
said-
And if it's not white
all
people
I
or
said-
Asian people,
all
who
I,
is it?
all I said, I didn't say anything about, inherently violent. All I said is that if it's
Now you did.
If it's
no one accused you of that, and now
if
you did.
it's a white-
So like your
No, no, no.
bias is slipping out
It's
there.
clear
anyone let
you
me
wanna
talk here?
say it. You should
Can
just
anyone let
say
me
it.
talk here?
You don't want to blame one race for violence when that's actually not true.
Is it white people? Is it white people?
It is white people.
Are these attacks
It
happening
is
in
white
the world?
I didn't want to talk about it in this video, but I guess I'll talk about it briefly. This part of this video is actually the perfect example to why I said I don't support pride groups like BLM or the gay pride organization. Pride is an emotional state, an incredibly powerful emotional state, just like love. In fact, a lot of people get the two confused. They are not the same. When you are in an incredibly emotional state, you lose your rationality. And when you lose your rationality, you hold a lot of bias. You can tell in this video which members of this group hold the most pride in being a minority. This guy wanted to bring to light that white people are not the predominant cause for these Asian hate situations, and that it is in fact another minority group. And because these people hold so much pride in being a minority, they are willing to overlook that, and their bias protects any other minority group, and they will only accept that any non-minority group can be the sole perpetrator and the sole group to be mad at. In fact, if they were to be shown the statistics, I guarantee they would be willing to do anything to defend the minority groups who are the main cause of these Asian hate groups. They would be willing to say, well, they grew up in a different lifestyle, they were oppressed themselves. They make excuses in order to protect that minority group that they hold so much pride in. Now, anyone without that emotional bias would be able to look at the situation and say, it doesn't matter what color the person is, who is hurting the Asian people. They should be treated the same in being punished, and they should be held accountable. They shouldn't have excuses made for them. But as you will clearly see, that pride has made certain members of this show very anti-white. They have a superiority complex, which is when deep down inside you feel inferior for some reason, and you feel that the only way to overcome that is to convince yourself that you are superior. There's an example later on in this video that I will bring to light that proves this.
Wait, let me finish my point.
Certainly.
I think it is gaslighting when, again, the majority of violent attacks against Asians are not being perpetrated by white people to blame white supremacy.
White supremacy as a construct is this idea like that the norm of American is whiteness.
Yes.
That whiteness is the default.
Standard.
That whiteness is the standard that we all ought to aspire to. And we
It's
deviate
not just
from
talking about KKK.
Yeah.
It's not talking about lynchings. It's about a mentality that we have
otherizing.
absorbed.
Now, I know this is going to be hard to believe, but I have in fact been white my entire life. I'm not transracial. I have no idea what the hell whiteness is. I mean, if you want to talk about whiteness and the degree that we get burnt by the sun, then sure. But when it comes to anything else, any other aspect of our lives, the way we act, the way we grow up, anything, nothing determines that, especially not the color of our skin. Which also means there's no such thing as blackness or Asianness. It's all made up. It's all your own stereotype of what you believe people should be, and that's just racist. But by all means, please tell me what whiteness is, and then tell me what blackness is, and Asianness, and every other group that you clearly hold stereotypes for, and do that without sounding racist.
I think Kamala exists.
It's politically
and
expedient.
You kind of saw this when Biden chose her. She exists to basically appeal to like the woke diversity mob. Like, that's the truth. Biden said, I'm going to to pick a woman, and then he said, I'm going to pick a woman of color, quote unquote, ended up with Kamala Harris. And I just think that a lot of people outside of Ivy League educations find that stuff off-putting. In general America, a lot of people of all different colors are very off-put by her entire political presentation in existence because they're off-put by the
women,
diversity,
black people,
liberal nonsense.
They're off-put by a woman in leadership. I want to chime in here.
Apparently, even like women of color and black women, even like
as we
her
talked about,
approval rating in general sucks.
I agree.
Why? Because
let's get off the approval rating for a second. I want to hold on one point of yours, which is she's a token. That's what I heard from you.
Sure. I think Biden chose her absolutely as a token.
So I want to know how you respond to sort of what Vince was saying, that Kamala Harris effectively was a token pick because demographic boxes, and specifically an Asian American demographic box.
I feel like anytime a person of color gets chosen, we're looked at as a token, especially in institutions. It's historical, like it's new to us, right? So in one sense, there's some truth to it, even in our own communities, I think. Is she a token? Like we second guess ourselves. You start to second guess, are you worth it? Because you're constantly being questioned.
Qualified?
Did you get here because you were diversity hire or, this is the existence that we live in right now. And so Kamala Harris is actually very representative of what we face. You can say token all day long, but you can't take that away.
I honestly thought that this was common sense, but if any of you have that same issue and you cannot tell if somebody is being tokenized or not, these are great indicators. If your president says, I am going to pick somebody who is of this and this, then yeah, they're being tokenized. No intelligent person cares about race or sex when it comes to picking a leader for their nation. The only important thing that you should care about is the policy that the person is trying to push, and their race or sex does not determine any of their policy whatsoever. So if their race or sex is being promoted as some kind of attribute to make you want to vote for them, that means they're catering to a specific group that values those things because they are not intelligent enough to care about the things that truly matter, like the policy. Now, if somebody were to try and promote themselves to be leader and they keep bringing up their race or their sex as a valuable attribute, then they are tokenizing themselves because they're trying to sell themselves to that same ignorant group. You will see a lot of times a lot of the Republican members don't do that. They don't push their race. They don't push their sex. And that's because they don't think that that is valuable for what they're trying to do. That is a good person. That is the type of person that you should vote for. You should never vote for somebody who is trying to promote something that is irrelevant to the policies that they're trying to push. I mean, think about it. Adolf Hitler or the KKK, if they're trying to go for a position, clearly they're going to tell you that their race is important to their position. So why would you do the same thing and vote for somebody who's trying to promote that their race or their sex is an important, valuable trait to why you should vote for them?
I think that one of the biggest things that representation does is it says, I'm allowed to do that because I see someone that looks like me do that.
Yeah.
And I think just exactly what you said is that, with Black Lives Matter, Asian hate, we learned that if we work together as people of color, and that's where I think, that's what it means to me, is that we as a group working together get more done. And that if we support each other and we do this, we can get more of ourselves up there.
I think you will definitely see some people actually move to the right because of that. How big will it be? I don't really know. Probably not as big as a lot of Republicans hope, but I think it will happen.
So before, when I was talking about a superiority complex and the clip that I wanted to use to prove it, this is the one. Pride is rooted in a feeling of inferiority. In a lot of the typical minority households, you are being told that you cannot do what white people do, so you feel inferior to white people. The only way that you find to get out of that is to convince yourself that you are in fact superior to white people, which creates a divide and hatred towards white people. And who, of course, are going to be the best allies to help you go against white people? Other minorities. And then you rally with other people who also feel inferior for the same thing, and you promote a sense of pride in what makes you feel inferior to help convince each other that that is actually what makes you better than and superior than the other group that you are going against. This is how Adolf created groups to go against the Jews. This is how the KKK created groups to go against Republicans and minorities.
What do I think about the future? I'm gonna be hopeful because I think that oftentimes, we are characterized as just angry, right? And that our politic isn't, and that our politic isn't rooted.
Makes me angry.
But and our politic isn't rooted in love and isn't rooted in community, isn't rooted in hope, and I hope that it is, right? And so what I'm hopeful about is that we can sit here and name politicians who look like us and sound like us. And that wasn't the case when I was a kid. I didn't think that that was possible.
Well, it is pretty clear that that guy, he, him, and the purple-haired girl were the least loving people on that panel. They showed the most hatred towards a certain group of people. They had a very collectivist mindset and are the types of people that vote for people who do the exact same thing as them and will never show love towards everybody without seeing color. And let's be honest, they are on a panel of, 10 to 15 people, and all of them disagreed, but yet they find value in finding somebody to vote for that looks like them and talks like them, when they can't even agree with people who look like them and talk like them on the same panel. Clearly not much intelligence there. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'm hoping to do more reactions to Vice's debates. Remember, be blessed or oppressed. The choice is yours.